Let's get into this voicemail. By the way, you can always leave me a message at 510-343-3640.
How's it going, Brody? My name is Dominic. I'm calling from Manteca. First of all, I want to say this is like a really cool thing that you're doing.
Thank you.
Secondly, I would like to ask you to tell a Ray Fosse story. Like 90% of what I know about baseball I learned from him. And so, when he passed away, it was like, I don't know. It's like losing a distant relative almost. So, if you have any stories about Ray Fosse, I'd love to hear it, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. Thanks. Bye.
Wow. Dominic, first off, thank you for leaving that message. I was getting goosebumps literally just listening to it back. And the opportunity here to talk about Ray is actually appreciated. I mean, this is a tough subject. We lost him, several months ago, but even in that time that has passed, I don't think a lot of people have fully grasped his passing. Like it's not real yet, or it's not tangible yet. And whenever opening day does happen for Major League Baseball and the A's play their first game, we will celebrate this man. Of course, such a huge part of translating the game to so many fans. To your point, it's how a lot of A's fans learned the intimate parts of baseball that they know through Ray Fosse's experience and his work as a broadcaster. But I put together a couple points here. I hope some of this makes sense. Again, this is so personal and it's such a difficult thing to talk about. I wanted to just give some structure here. My number one of everything is just we don't yet know what we've lost. We can't realize that yet. It's going to take weeks and months of A's games and thinking about his presence, but not having it to fully realize what we're missing with Ray. And that's nobody's fault. It was just the nature of last season, how it played out when he had to step away from the broadcasts in August. And we didn't hear much from him, not a lot of updates, but everybody was certainly hoping that the winter months would provide him time and opportunity to get better, or at least well enough to return in some capacity. We could, celebrate him in person even more, but obviously things took some turns for the worse and quickly, and that's kind of the sad and frustrating part of this is we never truly got to say what we wanted to Ray, about him, to him, in front of everybody else. There wasn't that opportunity to do it. And like I said, since, he passed right after the season and we haven't had an A's game yet, I just think, number one, we don't realize the magnitude of his loss. Somebody who was a front-facing employee of the team for many decades, the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and into the 2020s. How many other clubs, how many other pro sports teams have a Ray Fosse who had been around that long? So I think the amazing longevity, too, is what strikes me about Ray. I wish, Dominic, I had a bunch of stories to tell you here, but Ray was largely a private individual, and I think a lot of that comes across in how long we found out he had been fighting illness. It was a long time that he kept this to himself. And even when you got to know him, as I did over the years, you kind of had to dig a little bit to get to know about him. He always wanted to talk about everybody else, which was kind of the nature of Ray. But you had to kind of, quiz him a little bit to find out more about Ray. He did not like talking about himself. He did not like making it about himself. But, I would love to, if I could ask him some more questions tomorrow, I would just say, why did you do this for so long? His longevity, his love for the A's and the game and the team, which went through so many different phases of managers, ownership, players. The constants, I've said this, the constants of the Oakland A's have been the Coliseum, green and gold, and Ray Fosse. I mean, those three things have never wavered over the 50-plus years of the A's in Oakland. So that longevity is something to aspire to. And when you think about longevity combined with his private nature, I don't want to speak for Ray, but I think looking back, now knowing what he was dealing with away from work for all these last 15, 16 years, kind of makes you wonder if the A's were actually therapeutic for Ray, if the A's actually healed him, kept him alive longer, helped him get through things physically, mentally, all of the above. The A's were his escape or his outlet. I mean, it's something he clearly wanted to be a part of. Even when in recent years he wasn't scheduled to do the TV broadcast that day, he would switch over to the radio side. He just could not get enough of the Oakland A's. And again, I don't want to go too far into this. I don't want to make this, too personal, but knowing him enough as I did, seeing the situation, seeing his passion, it almost makes you feel like the A's were a bit of medicine for Ray during these years that we found out that, he was struggling with health issues. And I think there is something else to point out here before I let this conversation go. As a young person who got into the business while Ray was doing it, and, he set a high bar for everybody. He kind of was a leader by example, and it leaves a legacy to match. It really does. Now, I'm not going to copy everything Ray did, and he's had a totally different life experience as a ball player through the years and decades he did. That's not me at all. But I want to say that it's an inspiring thing to do what he did as well as he did for as long as he did. And if I can apply that to things that I'm doing, hopefully surrounding the Oakland A's for many, many years to come, a long time to come, I mean, it's inspiring to look at that alone and hope that you could someday do it similar. Not do it identical. Nobody can do that. But to do it similar. So those are my thoughts on Ray. I appreciate the opportunity to bring this up. And like I said, this is a tough conversation to have, but it's an important one. And I think it's a very realistic one that we're all about to face when baseball returns and we don't hear his voice or his face and we don't hear a lot of wows.